What's up, bench warmers? It's a twofer on this episode, a two-piece, a repeat. It's myself, Diego, and Gat on the other side of the line. What's up, Gat?
What's up? What's up? Can't
We're
complain. Sort
recording.
of.
We're recording this episode ourselves, getting out onto the airwaves for you guys. We're gonna go over a lot of the action that happened. We had a blank game week 32 happen. We had a game week 33 happen, all over the weekend and within this midweek. We're recording on Thursday night. But before we get into all of that action, all of the reaction, all of the non-action on Chelsea side, we're also going to get into the introductions. Obviously, we remind you every time to make your voice shared on the bench. We want to hear from you guys, especially Chelsea fans. We've been begging for Chelsea fans to come on. It still hasn't happened. City fans all smug after the result in this midweek and Haaland breaking the record. We want to hear from you too. Spurs fans coming back and fighting the interim to the interim. Is it going to happen? Are you guys going to end up somewhere above the half of the table? We're not Chelsea, they may say, but the thing is that it looks like most of London is feeling the blues. You feel me, guy?
All day.
So before the episode starts, all of our socials, Benchwarmers FC1, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, in the description, under the comments. Let us know on YouTube if you're watching this or if you're listening to it. Always get in touch with us. We want to hear from you. We want to have your voice heard on the bench. Gats, how was your weekend coming into this? How was your week before this episode that we're recording right now? How you been?
Been good. Been good. Can't complain. I mean, I live a pretty boring life. Just wake up, work, and then maybe hop on and play some video games with you guys. So I don't know, not much goes on in my life, to be honest
It's
with
not too boring. It's not too
you.
boring though, because there was a match on Tuesday. The
Yeah,
Benchwarmers team, Bafana FC, got
yeah.
onto the pitch again.
We don't
You
we
don't
don't talk
wanna
about
you don't
that
wanna talk
match.
about it?
We don't talk about that match.
You don't want to talk about it? How did
That
you
was a
feel though? At
rough
least
one.
on the pitch, it wasn't a positive result for the guys. It was a loss that they took. So starting out the season with the draw and a loss. The loss, however, was against a team that is in a higher division. So if that takes any merit, the boys tried the best that they could. The
Yeah, it was
scoreline wasn't a very flattering one. It did end up 4-0 at the end. But Gat, how do you feel out on the grass, on the turf, actually, with the ball at your feet?
it'd be
Second game
better.
in.
It'd be better if we were on grass. That ball rolls a lot on that turf, but but no, feels good to be out there. This past Tuesday was a rough one. Both just because of the game itself and just physically it was a challenge. Myself having played wingback for most of that game, it was again against the good team. So I mean, I was doing a lot of running up and down the pitch, so I was definitely feeling it. But no, it's nice to be back out there. But it's only been 2 games. There's about 13 more games to go, well into like late July. I think maybe the first week of August is probably our last official game. So there's it's a long season, so we'll get there.
Definitely a very long season. The rest of the guys that are also on the team that are part of the bench, Josue and Eric, Marco has also showed up to help support. Some of the other gentlemen and friends that we have been, they've been putting the minutes in. It's only a matter of time before the guys start gelling. Again, it's only the second match. The third one is also going to be a home match. So hopefully this time around, third time's a charm, and we get that notch in the win column. So
We will.
we're going to talk about wins, and we'll get to blank game week 32. I don't have a whistle, but we are going to get into the action in the Prem. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get it. There were a few teams that weren't playing, most notably United, City, Brighton, and I believe Chelsea, correct?
Yep.
That didn't play in this blank game week 32 that happened over this past weekend. So we're looking at Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The first one that we're going to start with, although there was another result that eclipsed it already, Arsenal 3, Southampton 3. Southampton taking a 2-0 lead very early on in the game. Arsenal had conceded within the first minute, 2-0 up as of 15 minutes, thanks to a Theo Walcott finish. Martinelli answering in the 20th. I mean, for fans, especially Gunners fans and other Prem fans that have watched the game, it's not a matter of going over what happened, but trying to talk about how it happened. Gat, did you expect at all to see a Southampton 2-0 lead?
I don't think anybody in the world expected a Southampton 2-0 lead. I mean, it just goes to show that there's a reason why we put the Prem above every other league. I mean, this was the last place team against the first place team, and Southampton going up early 2-0. I mean, it was incredible just to watch that happen. And then, I mean, yeah, of course it ended up 3-3, but I mean, it could have things could have gone really bad for Arsenal.
They really could have. It was, I would say, lucky that they were facing Southampton. At the beginning, one thing that I did feel was the fact that it was Southampton, that they're down bottom of the league. There was no question that Arsenal were going to answer, but they did leave that answer until very, very late. Uh, a smart finish by Odegaard, taking that shot as soon as he had a moment to. Saka with the same thing, firing the ball under Bazunu from close range, just rolling it over the line. It seemed like it was all lost, but fighting for this point at home, credit to Southampton as well, who clearly are trying to fight for their survival. It's still very tight at the bottom of the table. And of course, we're going to look at the table now after results combined from 32 and 33. They're essentially 6 points off of safety. All of the bottom three, including the next two teams that are just 1 point ahead, they're all on 33 games. 15th place West Ham, they have one match that they have to make up. They're on 34 points, but Southampton, dead bottom, 6 wins, 6 draws, 21 losses on 24 points. That match, it looked almost incredible, the fact that they were able to even take any kind of a lead, let alone score twice. But Arsenal, they had to fight back. They had to get that point. This would end up being the third game that they draw in a row. Conversely, they were up 2 goals. They let go of those leads. This time around, they fought back. It looked like things were actually going to end up working out. It was the danger that I'm sure, I don't know if you've heard it, you don't want to go up against a team that actually needs to fight for something, especially those relegation candidates. So it's fair to say that Southampton gave everything that they could in that match. They ended up with a 3-3 draw, but one team that didn't give anything at all, and I'm going to be smug about it right now, because despite the result today, 6-1 thumping Newcastle at home to Tottenham. They were up by 5 goals in the opening 20 minutes. Jacob Murphy with a brace, Isak with a brace, Joelinton getting in on the fun. And it wasn't until probably the 49th minute that Harry Kane essentially took the ball and he said, I guess I'll do it all myself. Dribbled from the left flank, if I'm not mistaken, got into the box, cut in, slotted it into the side netting across the goalie. And that was really the only answer that Spurs had. Callum Wilson getting subbed on in the 66th minute, and quite literally in the next play, ends up tapping the ball in from close range. Gat, is this something that you saw, like 6-1 from Newcastle?
I mean, I definitely didn't foresee 6-1. I mean, it's Newcastle, and they're one of the few teams that have just been a complete, just dominant wall when it comes to home games. So just going into this, I mean, I already knew it was going to be a tough game. Despite the Spurs form, they still have those quality players that can still make something happen. But no way in hell was I expecting a 6-1. Newcastle just looked completely solid. They were just totally in control, and just Spurs just did not have an answer for anything. It was shocking to see that kind of performance. It did not look like a team that's trying to get into top four. That looked like a relegation type team, unfortunately, that went up against Newcastle.
6 goals, 25 total shots, 8 on target. Spurs ended up trying 11 shots with only 3 on target. The possession was, I guess, on Newcastle's side. It really seemed like they had no answer for whatever Newcastle was throwing at them. Arguably, getting 5 goals past you in the opening 20 minutes is going to shell shock anybody. But the one person who took it the hardest was Stellini, who ended up getting sacked immediately after this game. He didn't survive the weekend. And now the interim manager has an interim manager who we'll get to after the result today. Ryan Mason being reappointed. The last time he was at the helm of Spurs for the first time was after Mourinho sacking, and he ended up taking charge for that league title game. That's where that very famous meme came up, where they had the audacity to compare his accolades to Pep Guardiola's in a little infographic chart at the bottom of the screen. You had all of these ridiculous numbers for Guardiola's side, and poor Ryan Mason with donuts on the other end. His starting out and fresh career as an interim manager at the time. But now the interim to the interim, I think it would be a nice segue, but I don't want to get ahead of it before. I'd like to tackle the things chronologically. At this time, aside from the result today, how would you feel as a Spurs fan looking at your club saying we need we need a caretaker to the caretaker because the other one isn't taking care of problems, Gat?
I think that's a tough situation to be in. I mean, of course, as a player, you wanna do what's right for the fans, for your teammates. But just that kind of turmoil, I mean, we went through it. So I mean, it's just not good. The mentality of the players is it's gonna start going downhill. And I mean, do they really have the personnel in place within the squad to keep them afloat? I mean, likes of Harry Kane, maybe even Hoiberg, are they enough to just, keep the morale up in these times of crisis? I mean, who knows? There's 5 games left now. They just at this point they just got to get through the season somehow.
There really isn't more evidence that they desperately need a way out. Again, this was another match that Richarlison ended up not scoring. To his defense, he was only subbed on until the 83rd minute. It looked like probably Danjuma was going to make the most impact when he came on a few minutes before that. It didn't look like it was going to be anything positive from Spurs, and I think this could have been probably a factor that Hugo Lloris was taken off at halftime because apparently he had suffered an injury, which also kept him out of the game that happened today. Fraser Forster going in between the sticks at halftime. By then, the damage was done. I guess we can give some credit to that, in that they only scored once afterwards. But switching the conversation over to Newcastle real quick, is this it for them? Do they have a fixture run to even, I guess, lock down? It looks like they might, because they do have Southampton next, but afterwards it's Arsenal, Leeds, and Brighton, and they finish off against Leicester and Chelsea, who haven't been fantastic by any means during the season. It, there was also some comments, Gad, that a lot of people were leaving all of the backlash from their new owners and the influx of money into the club. I would like to say that probably Eddie Howe should be getting a shout for maybe even manager of the season. I think that he should be among the candidate shortlist. Yes, they're going to get an influx of money, but I think with what he's done on that, with that current roster, he only has a few reinforcements there. He's been doing things with Trippier, with Callum Wilson, Joelinton, Jacob Murphy. I think the list goes on how he's getting results from the squad. Not to mention the back line with Nick Pope, Botman, Cher, Byrne. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah,
Manager of the season candidate?
I definitely would agree with that. He's just done some amazing things. You mentioned Joe Ellington, just moved simple things like just putting him in a different position and getting more out of him just completely changes the way he plays, and it fits into their system so well. But just on the team in general, I mean, there's still technically, mathematically speaking, there's still top 4 to play for. I mean, you never know what happens in these last 5 games. There's still and they have 6 games left actually because they have a game in hand. So there's still a lot to play for. I don't think that they're going to be letting their foot off the gas anytime soon, and especially coming up within the next few weeks, they have a very big game against Arsenal. So I don't see them. I don't see them letting down at all. I think they're just going to push on and just show everybody that they're the real deal, and then they're just going to be that much more, I guess, fearful, or a team to be afraid of next season. I just see them ending the season strong.
It looks like a team that's also trying to end the season strong has been Liverpool in that blank in week 32, 3-2 over Nottingham Forest. They had to really fight for that one. Diogo Jota opening the scoring, and then Nico Williams getting one back. Jota answering, Morgan Gibbs White getting that back in the second half. All of these goals were scored right in the middle of the second half. The majority of them was Salah scoring the winner in the 70th minute. It looks like maybe a lifeline for Liverpool. It seems like they're trying to take on. The fixture list is definitely a bit more kind to them. It looks like they don't have, I would say, heavy opposition in their last five, because this is like we're going to mention later on. This is the home stretch for the marathon, and these last six matches that they have, really the toughest opponent on paper is going to be Spurs, really, and that's their next game. I think with that we can kind of skip into this midweek game week for 33. They ended up playing West Ham United, 2-1 win. They were a little bit shaky. Paqueta opening the score in the 12th minute, but Cody Gakpo and Joel Matip putting both goals so that Liverpool can take this win. They've now put 3 wins in a row, which is definitely a help. The two results prior to that were a 0-0 draw and then a 2-2 draw against Arsenal. Again, it looks like Liverpool are going to take advantage of this fixture run. And right now they're sitting pretty comfortably in 7th place. They have a 4-point gap over Brighton. It goes to say that Brighton still have 3 matches to make up. Liverpool do have a game in hand, which is going to come up soon. However,
Those
yeah.
those European spots though, just fifth, sixth, and seventh, they're just 1 point is separating them. It's gonna be a crazy end to see who's gonna end up in Europa, who's gonna end up in the Conference League, and who's gonna miss out entirely.
Missing out entirely was what it felt like when Chelsea took a 2-0 loss at home to Brentford. All right, yeah. I know you're not a Chelsea fan, but you bring in your club legends. You tell them, hey, listen, we need you to take care of things. It's a shambles. We have no other options. We have nobody who can do it better than you, Frankie. Come on, Super Frank. And now you're taking 5 losses on the chin.
And playing 5 midfielders and 5 defenders.
Against Brentford. 2-0 Brentford, goals from Brian Mbumo and assists out of Spilicueta, own goal to kind of put a wrench into whatever plans Frank Lampard had. A lot of people and a lot of the chatter, what I saw online, and I know I'm probably going to get under the skin of maybe even some Chelsea fans, and I'm doing my best to try to keep myself informed, at least on what's going on with the team selection. There was a lot of outcry that they had spent so much money and they ended up with a front line of Sterling, Gallagher, and Gante. At least on paper, it looked like Gante was playing further forward than Kovacic and Fernandez. Obviously, what happened on the pitch may not have reflected that. He may have been more fluid. Aspilicueta putting in a very subpar performance. Kepa obviously being beaten twice, but it just looks like they don't have anybody to go up front. 2 subs at halftime, Mudryk and Aubameyang coming on, taking off Aspilicueta, shifting, I guess, that lineup so that they can have the extra attacker, then throwing on Joao Felix and Madueke in the 79th minute, and still nothing to do. And this was just after Brentford has scored the second goal. All right, Gat. We'll keep it simple. How far down do you see Chelsea slipping? They've played 32 games. They have 1 game in hand. They're just 2 points above Palace and Wolverhampton. We saw a great win from Bournemouth, which I can allude to. A massive win today, which put them all the way up to 14th on 36 points. Chelsea have a small cushion between them and 14th place. And as far as what their fixture run is, which is what we've been looking at a lot, they play Arsenal next, which I do want to talk about a little bit. They still have to play City. They still also have to play United, and they still also have to play Newcastle. So things can be like there are actual rumblings, at least that I've seen. There are posts, there's opinions that they may only win feasibly one game out of the next six, not including draws, of course, but that game they're looking at is the home match against Nottingham Forest. And even then, they have to travel away to Bournemouth, who, again, we've mentioned, these relegation fighting teams are going to scrap for whatever they can get. And obviously, if you smell blood in the water with a weaker side in terms of form, you would take it, wouldn't you, Gat?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, just Chelsea, it's crazy to see that they're they're only 10 points off of relegation. 10 points. That's just something just unbelievable for a supposed top six side.
Well,
I mean, and
this season definitely not.
the teams under them, they're 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 gonna come at you. They're gonna come at you the rest of the season. I mean, Wolves, one example, they've been getting into form lately. You mentioned Bournemouth. Palace are no sleepers either, and those are just teams that are within 3 points of them. So I mean, if things go way south for Chelsea, I mean, they could easily see themselves in 14th, 15th place within the next couple of weeks alone. I just I don't know what's going on over there. I mean, Lampard in his last 19 games that he's managed at Chelsea has only won one. Of those 19, they've only scored 11 goals. And I
Uh,
can't even tell you how many they conceded because it's just filled with twos, threes, and fours every single game. So it's
well,
just things aren't working.
the interesting stat guy, which I was looking at, and I had this one written down. Chelsea have conceded less goals than both Arsenal and United so far in the top four. Only City and Newcastle have conceded less. However, in terms of scoring goals, they have very clearly the least amount out of anybody in the top 10. And they're even eclipsed by Palace, who scored one goal more. Bournemouth have scored 32. West Ham has scored 34. It is it wrong to say that the biggest issue here is their frontline issue, someone to put the ball in the net?
They don't have someone that can score. They have $600 million later. They have all these midfielders and all these defenders. I mean, we were joking at the beginning of the season that Chelsea were going to line up with 10 defenders with how many defenders they kept buying, but they're not buying the right players, it seems.
Well, never mind the right players. It looks like now they're going to go after the right manager. And there was a lot of rumors flying around. There's some tweets going up by Fabrizio himself sounding the alarm. It's close. It's almost over the line. Pochettino to Chelsea. And I wish we had either a Spurs fan or a Chelsea fan here to tell us what they feel about that. As a Spurs fan, how do you feel about having someone that you were probably got you the closest to glory, the closest to a title in the last, what has it been, 5 years, 6 years, I guess, just to go out of whatever's been the most recent. How do you feel that this man is, and like, you also have the idea of the one thing that I think we can agree on this, the one thing that Pochettino didn't have at Spurs was financial backing. And in fact, he was praised specifically for doing a lot with very little. And that was his thing. That was the magic. That was Poch's secret sauce. You know, you're not going to give me money for players. You're going to spend it all in this new stadium. We're going to be playing in Wembley and putting stuff aside, you know, changing everything up. I'm going to still make it happen, take them all the way to a Champions League final. How would you feel as a Spurs fan seeing that guy now showing up at the poker table where the small blind and big blind are 100 mil and 200 mil? You know what I mean?
I mean, I would definitely feel some kind of way with, I mean, like you said, he was probably their best shot in recent years. And the fact that, you know, I think at one point he was also rumored to go back to Spurs too. So, I mean, just to have that just do a 180 and have the potential of him going to the other London team, I mean, I would definitely feel some kind of way.
Now, as a Chelsea fan, I feel like Chelsea fans, and this is me going out on a limb, I feel like Chelsea fans see this as a downgrade. I don't really think that Chelsea fans are very receptive to Pochettino rumors to their club.
I think a lot of Chelsea fans are no longer Chelsea fans after what's going on this season. They're some of them are focusing on their real manager who's not doing so well at Bayern. So I think that's just the state of the club, state of the
So
fans.
what was this real manager at Bayern Gat that you heard
They're real manager. They're
through the
the new
grapevine?
their new manager is not doing so well. Their old manager, Mr. Nagelsmann, is now in seems to be the front runner to be getting in that hot seat over at that blue club.
Who do you think would do best between Pochettino and Nagelsmann? I think that's rough, man. That's a tough question. I hope that we get a Chelsea fan that's able to answer that for us, because honestly, and yes, it is. I do need to excuse my ignorance because I wouldn't know how they would best approach the problem. It looked like at least Pochettino, in his style of play, was able to do a lot with defensive-minded tactics, a defensive setup, wing backs, plugging up the midfield. But I do want to say that he needed that one playmaker. He needed that one player to kind of link it all together. And although he is their starting striker, we saw today, and I'm not going to be able to escape the comparison, today in that game between Spurs and United, Kane was shifted over to the midfield and he dragged the collar of his entire team into a draw. He literally dragged them through the mud, grabbed that game by the scruff of the neck, as they say. 2 assists. Does Chelsea have a player like that? I don't think so. And I'm not saying obviously of Harry Kane caliber. I'm not trying to make a one-on-one comparison. I'm trying to pick up someone who has the ability to spread the play, link that up. Of course, some people, and I've heard Enzo Fernandez is probably the guy. I've heard also that maybe even Gallagher was supposed to be the guy, in terms of linking up that defensive setup with whatever they have going forward. You would think that they have some sort of speed or finishing with Sterling. Aubameyang, I think, unfortunately, is a lost cause, complete blunder. And we'll get into that also, because I do want to talk about these players that aren't coming good for their clubs and like no impact, sitting on the bench, not scoring, what have you. Poch or Nagelsmann, you want to flip a coin, or you want to tell me who you think your prediction is going to be? Let's say it's those two. If
I
not,
go
whatever. Let's say it's those two.
I go Nagelsmann, to be
You
honest.
go Nagelsmann.
Yeah,
I think Poch is
I
going to
mean,
be it.
just I go Nagelsmann. I mean, yeah, different league, but he was doing really well at Bayern. I mean, we're all still surprised that he got the axe over at Bayern. But like you said, Poch does have a more defensive style of play, and Chelsea need attack. That's what they need, and I think that's something that Nagelsmann could feasibly bring. I mean, it'll possibly see the end of a wingback system at Chelsea with the way Nagelsmann tends to play. But he could be just what they need, just to at least get some more production
Mm-hmm.
out of the millions of midfielders and strikers that they have.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, if any Chelsea fans are tuning in, if any Chelsea fans happen to hear this, please let us know who you prefer out of the two candidates. Who's going to take your club out of this? And then the meme, I want this meme to happen because it's been slung around so many times. The 007. There's 2 games left. I would predict that Arsenal take it to Chelsea. It's not over yet, Gunners fans. I know there was a big blow to the title hopes, and I'm not just trying to be nice, because you know what? There was a lot of chatter. There was a leading the table at the top, a lot of finger pointing. Where are you? Top of the table. All right, I get it, but I don't think it's over yet. My point is, I don't see Chelsea winning that Arsenal game. 6 games. That means the one after that, and I want to see who it is. Who is if it's the Southampton or Nottingham.
After the
It's
Chelsea Arsenal game,
oh,
it's
it's Bournemouth.
Bournemouth. It is Bournemouth indeed.
2 away games on top of that.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. I mean, it's highly possible that the only game that they can probably win is that Forest game.
Oh my God.
I mean, granted, Bournemouth recently as well, they've been in recent form, they've done better away than they have at home, but
Yeah.
they're still fighting for something, and you can never count
Yeah,
them out.
they need daylight between themselves and that 17th spot. They need daylight. Oh man, so it's very close. You know what? A record 5 straight losses for Frank Lampard and Chelsea. 2 games away from the 007 memes, which will be eternal. I know. Listen, I am a bona fide hater. I have been enjoying making fun of Chelsea during this moment of turmoil that they're going through. Arsenal and Bournemouth, the next 2 matches, I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening for them.
Not a
But
chance.
here's one slim chance, and it was Man City hosting Arsenal at the Etihad 4-1 and making it look like the easiest. Like I say this full well knowing that it was a walk in the park when they beat United 6-3. I feel like I have to put out that disclaimer because apparently otherwise whatever I say as far as analysis seems freaking slighted. Getting that out of the way, it was incredible that they made it look like they were in third gear, second gear at times. That first goal, that first goal that KDB puts in, man. I do want to say, was it a penalty on Kevin De Bruyne from that party challenge?
Mm,
Don't
it
sit on
can.
the fence, Gat. Don't sit on the fence. Come on. Either give me
No,
like you can say yes or
no.
no. I think yes. I think it's interesting that you say no, but I think yes.
I mean, it can go either way, but no, I'm gonna stick with no.
You're gonna
Let
stick
the
with
boys
no.
let the boys play.
I thought, yeah, too. I thought surely because of how VAR looks at things, I thought, okay, um, to credit, Kevin De Bruyne doesn't touch the ball. He gets to the ball. He doesn't have contact with the ball, as in like he doesn't have possession. So I see that. I see that point. But I thought, okay, this is gonna go to VAR. They're gonna look at it. They're gonna see that he clearly Party went for the player, put his leg in the way, and then you know what, KDB ended up swinging a miss or whatever. But okay, that was a strong shout after that. And this is probably the scariest part, and we'll get to it from a United standpoint, selfishly, of course. But Erling Haaland holding up that ball, literally being hugged, and then unlocking that one freaking pro club trait. What are they called? God, the special ones, the perks, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
unlocking
yeah, yeah.
the link up play perk, and it's over. He 100% unlocked the link up play perk, because the one thing that I do remember even laughing about, making fun of, was the fact that he had a terrible first touch. He had Lukaku touch, straight up. He had Lukaku touch, and now like yes, he does have a big imposing physicality, especially with putting his back towards the defenders, receiving the ball, having the frame of mind to see that run from De Bruyne and then put a perfect weight on it for him to run on. It's over. I think that's a very scary version of Erling Haaland. I think at least for Prem's sake, that he's now, at least in that instance, he was able to do that, and then he did it again. But before we get to that, you know, Kevin De Bruyne running down, and I don't know how he just made it. He definitely made it look very easy. He took that probably what, maybe 25, I'd say 25, 30-meter run, because he
Something like
shot it
yeah.
once he was by like the edge of the 18. He's running against, who was it that he was running? Was it Gabriel he was running against? He takes
I
that
believe so. Yeah.
touch. He takes the touch to the right, knocks the ball into space, And that was his setup. He knocks the ball into space, and that's how he set himself up to hit the ball with curve outside of the near post and underneath Ramsdale to slot it in. At that point, I think you could tell, at least in my head, this is going to be incredibly easy for City. Then
Yeah, I
you
think
have John Stones. And like before I get to John Stones, after this first goal, what was going through your head?
I just thought, okay, it's gonna be one of those games. Is exactly what I thought because I mean to make it look that easy against the team who is
Top.
statistically the best team in the Prem right now, to make it look that easy on the first goal that early, it just felt like it was gonna be one of those days.
The John Stones goal right before halftime, correct? Because it was 1-0 at that time. I think that was probably the dagger. It must have felt like, okay, this is slipping away from us now. The fact that it was so close, that header, Kevin De Bruyne obviously again on that play providing the assist.
It's
It looked
just as
like
soon as when you see it initially, you're just screaming for offside, 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 and then freaking VAR kills you as soon as they turn the freaking angle. I mean, even with the lines they drew, I mean, it's still hard to really tell because you're looking at freaking Ben White's toe in relation to Stones' like shoulder, like
yeah, his shoulder and arm, yeah.
eh, that was. I mean, I felt that. That was rough.
So
But to
2-0.
Stones' credit, though, I mean, it was a well taken header.
It was a well taken header. And then Erling Haaland linking up with De Bruyne again. He was this is the second part of the unlocked perk for link up for Haaland, because one thing that I will say, and I hope I'm not wrong in saying it, I think Party dropped a stinker this game. I thought Party was probably the weakest link of the Arsenal squad at that moment. It really felt like, and I remember thinking to players, especially Kevin De Bruyne, who isn't particularly fast. There's no way that he's getting past these players, like this player specifically, Party so easy, and it felt like he wasn't in the game as much. But then rolling it over to De Bruyne having the freaking presence of mind to slot it right between holding his legs, make him roll it under Ramsdale again. By that point, it's 3-0. Um,
Yeah, they were definitely missing Saliba back there as well. I mean, no disrespect to Holding either, but I
no,
think
no, no.
it's
Disrespect to Holding. I know. Arsenal fans are going to be like, yes, you're going to stand up for your player the same way I've taken flack for fucking Maguire. I get that, but no, Holding. Holdini gets his freaking goal, his headed goal in the 86th minute. Did I not say also that Saliba was probably the biggest addition to this squad in that he allows the rest of the players in front of him to go forward and do their thing? And like we
Arsenal
saw
have
it.
Arsenal have conceded every single match that he's not been in.
Exactly. That's six. That's six. And of course, injury's not an excuse. You need other players to step up. I get it. It really the one thing that I was waiting on, and it really seemed like they weren't getting into rhythm, is what was the attacking line. Um, Martinelli, I think, was relatively quiet. I felt like he maybe was a little bit timid to get forward and do what he does. Typically, he's given and afforded the space thanks to Jesus to dribble, to get past behind players. Bringing on Trossard, Jorginho, and Emil Smith Rowe, I wasn't. Of course, I'm not going to say that I would know or that I understand what was going through Arteta's head at the moment, but just looking at it, it seemed like, are these subs going to be enough? And clearly, and this is something that I do know that Arsenal fans have said, clearly the depth in squad caught up to them. I've heard that the depth in the squad isn't going to matter or match up to what City have had for the past several seasons. But I would counter that. I would counter that with the fact that Arsenal have been playing one game a week for a while now, and there's other teams that clearly have like City, like United, who've had games in midweeks every week since the World Cup break, and they're still trying to handle it. As far as depth goes, I think there should have been probably. I don't know about Emil Smith Rowe being ready for a game like this, especially with minutes lacking. I know Reece Nelson came on to have an impact late as a substitute, and Nketiah coming back from injury. It just really feels like probably, in a very unlucky sense, this game came at the wrong moment for this team. I don't think it's an excuse because they haven't had the heavy schedule. But in terms of, I guess, the health of the squad, the fitness of the squad, it probably they clearly, at least to me, they look like they weren't ready for it. And then to address the elephant in the room, I was so happy for Aaron Ramsdale and his heroics, literally keeping out the freaking 17 goals that Haaland could have scored in that game. Blocking, stretching, anticipating, he was everywhere. And then, of course, in the night, like that's what like made me laugh. The fact that it came in the freaking 95th minute.
Yeah, Haaland just played the whole game and he realized, all right, I guess what I've been doing is not enough. Let me let my hair down and let's get to work. And that's what he did.
Yeah, he did. I wonder why. I wonder what was going through his head. Maybe did he think that? I don't know.
I
But
just thought
yeah.
he lost. I just thought he lost his little scrunchie or whatever the hell.
Oh yeah, the band. Listen, Phil Foden providing the assists. Julian Alvarez was also subbed on for the KDB. Foden coming on for Grealish, and then Erling Haaland with the 33rd goal of his season, now breaking the 32 goal record held by Salah for a 38 game season. I said it in the beginning, Gat. It doesn't matter if I thought he was or he wasn't. I think the clear evidence here was that he was. I was 10 toes down, Gat, from the beginning. He's not going to break the record because I don't want him to. I'm going to say no. You're going to tell me yes or no. I don't want the credit. I don't want the smug credit to be like, oh, yeah, I knew he was going to break the record. I said it since day. No, I don't care about that, Gat. I'd rather get the hate now. I'd rather get the people laughing now thinking that, oh, yeah, we got one over him now. It's not like that. It's not like that. You know why? Because Andy Cole has scored 34 goals in a single Prem season, and I don't see how I'm doing that yet. So that's my last saving grace. And in the words of Arsenal fans, you know, it's the hope that kills you. It's the hope that kills you. I was hoping that Haaland wasn't going to break that record and not basically see one of probably is going to be one of the greatest prospects in present footballers, current footballers now that we're going to see for a long time. The finished or the currently being refined product of Erling Braut Haaland. So yeah, congratulations, 33. I hope City fans can enjoy that one because nobody else cares. I certainly don't.
So now we're at the end of this. We're closing in on the end of the season. There's no Arsenal fans, unfortunately, on this pod, but I'm sure we'll get their take on it the next time around. But how do you see this title race going now?
I think there's listen. I like to be optimistic.
Because
I'm gonna speak. Hold on. I'm gonna speak as a United fan first, Gat. I'm gonna speak as a United fan first.
I know what you're gonna say.
It's either City having the three-peat or Arsenal being absolutely goddamn unbearable. I'm gonna say it just like that. I would rather, from a United bias, see Arsenal take it. United and Arsenal are the original titans of the Premier League. I don't care how you cut it. It was Fergie versus Wenger, Wenger versus Fergie for a long while. That was a decent, respected OG rivalry. I don't want no Pep Guardiola and his siphoned millions through some freaking shell company in the Cayman Islands. I don't need that. I'm not gonna recognize that. Of course, having them with the three-peat, that's something that United has been able to achieve, 3 Prems in a row. City haven't done that yet, thankfully. So as a
and there's
United fan,
also
which would I would prefer Arsenal. As myself, as a football fan, if I were putting myself in those shoes and United were in that position, I think I would still have hope. You know, Arsenal's fixture run is a little rough because obviously they still have to play Newcastle and Brighton. But after seeing Chelsea, I thought Chelsea was going to be an issue. Clearly not. I don't think I have no respect for Chelsea this season. None, zero, nothing. But Newcastle and Brighton, an away match and then a home fixture right after, those are probably going to be the 2 matches that might give them some issues. In terms of City, though, they do have a very
and
super soft,
historically they've done extremely well those
super
last 8
soft running,
games.
super soft running.
And then
And
from a historical standpoint as well, being United fans, there's also still the chances of City getting the trouble, which hasn't been done since.
yes, the treble. And you know what? I want to talk about that too, really quickly. I think that's a good segue, so we can stop talking about City and get into United, so we can talk about some fantasy points and wrap up this episode. Gat, Fulham, West Ham, Leeds, Everton, Chelsea, Brighton, Brentford. Maybe Brighton and Brentford can do something about that. I don't think so. I would love to believe that maybe West Ham and Everton get something. But after seeing that performance from Everton this week, I don't, like, literally today, I really don't think that Sean Dyche has the personnel to survive. Unless, of course, other teams around them decide to slip up even worse. Is there hope? Is there hope? I think Fulham, they're at the beach, written off. West Ham, the fact that it's an away game for West Ham, I don't really see much there. I think they could actually put a wrench in those plans. The best scenario here is draws for Man City, obviously. I think that's probably the most feasible. Of course, it's the Prem. Anything can happen. I totally get that. But right now, for argument's sake and thinking of things on the fly for the episode, that's what I'm getting at. Probably West Ham won't be much of an issue at home for City. Then you have Leeds, Everton away, maybe. But like I mentioned, the position that Everton have put, the hole that they've put themselves in, I don't think that they're going to be able to crawl out of that. It might even be too little too late by the time we get to that Everton match, because that's match day 36. And then afterwards, City have 2 games. That's when they make up their game against Brighton, which is this blank this weekend. That's going to be at the end of May 21st. They have a double against Chelsea and then against Brighton in midweek. Maybe if Chelsea decide to get their stuff together, Arsenal fans might have to thank Chelsea for that. I don't know. And we talked about this before. At least we mentioned it fantasy-wise. Historically, statistically, freaking City have been absolutely ruthless when it comes to the run-in. Absolutely ruthless. So again, it's the hope that kills you. It's the hope that kills you. I know Arsenal fans know that all too well. And I definitely had hope today after seeing Spurs ship 6 to Newcastle. And it was a wonderful first half. Looking at it, watching it, seeing how fluid United were, I was like, I breathed a sigh of relief. I was like, thank God these guys are doing well. They're linking up well. They're putting in runs. Sancho finally decided to shoot instead of play make. You know, Rashford getting in and doing what he does. No doubts about him scoring that as far as the position he was in. They looked fantastic. As soon as the second half came around, that was a completely different squad with the Man United jerseys on. I don't care what you say. Of course, 10 minutes after the restart, Pedro Porro getting that absolutely, like, it's hard for me to not. I'm going to talk right now as a non-neutral because obviously I'm looking at it from United's perspective in terms of hate. But Pedro Porro had no intention of actually hitting that into the goal. I think if De Gea makes also an attempt to save that instead of just watching it, right, Gat? He probably could have tripped over Richarlison. Maybe that's a foul. Maybe he gets to it. The fact that he decided to just look at it, I don't know. But listen, I'm talking about all the good stuff in the first half. Definitely there was a lot of bad in the second because Spurs were allowed to get back into it. And before I eat up everything about what this game was about, Gat, what was your take on comparing both halves? Or I think, let me make it simpler. What do you think was a contributing factor to those halves being so different?
I think it's just and we've seen it all season long, just our inability to be able to just kill off games nice and early. I mean, 2-0 is the most dangerous scoreline in football, and they
That's what they
needed
say.
they had the chances. They should have gotten more, just to put the game to bed, because the second that a third, even a fourth goal goes in, that morale for Spurs just goes even more in the toilet, especially playing in their toilet bowl stadium. And it's just, I mean, of course, there's got to be, unfortunately, some credit to Spurs, because they actually came to play in the second half, and we just let our foot off the gas. It was just crazy to see just the immense shift in the quality that we had in the first half, that compared to the second half. And they just nothing was working. Nothing was working. Unfortunately, Fred had a stinker when he came on. Malasia had an even worse stinker coming on. It just, nothing seemed to work in that second half at all.
The interesting thing to know is that, okay, after the Pedro Porro goal, which really seemed like a one-off, Kane taking a shot after Richarlison's missed header from the cross, and then the rebound falling to Porro, who just literally like swung a foot at it with the outside of his boot going into the near post next to the bar. Just 2 minutes after that was the Bruno chance, which it's an unbelievable miss. Yes, he probably was maybe rushed a little bit after the ridiculous Meg that I didn't even see during the first
Yeah, it
time
did.
around, like live.
It did seem like that, because yeah, it was a beautiful mid that he got off, but you can just tell, like, it felt like he thought that his touch was too much to get the Meg. So it at least I'm hoping that's that's what happened, and he felt rushed trying to get to the ball, because Forster didn't come out as quickly as I would have thought he would have when in that kind of a situation. So I mean, it was just unfortunate. And then Wan-Bissaka, I mean, all you had to do was just get your leg, your shin, your knee,
Yeah,
just
I'm not.
put it there. And then instead he like
He's a
kneels
defender.
down, tries to header it. I mean, if you're gonna kneel down to go for the ball, you're not gonna get enough power on it, no matter how close you are. You had a better shot, just stay standing. I mean, he probably could have even gotten away with maybe getting a touch on it real quick before swinging his foot at it, and that's all he needed. But it was just that's just how our second half went, unfortunately.
It was. I thought the Meg was clean. It was great, and it really looked like he probably put too much on it. He was stretching for the ball, but not to make an excuse of it. It really felt like, in all honesty, he was probably trying to put a statement on that goal, because it definitely looked like he blasted it when he could have just slotted it to either side of Forster, who was completely taken by surprise. It was just Fernandez and Forster. He's 10 yards out, just behind uh, just around the penalty spot, literally right in the middle of the goal. You can pick your slot, pick your corner, and it probably was something that bit him in the ass, that he was trying to put a statement on that goal and smash it, and it ends up careening off of the crossbar. And yeah, I do agree. Wan-Bissaka, it just shows that he's a defender, the best 1v1 defender in the Prem, with what was it? I think it was like an 87 percentile tackle success 1v1, something like that. Either way, clearly him going down, exactly, kneeling down just to get to ball level. And he also headed the ball into the ground, which is a bit awkward too. Definitely took out a lot of the sting from the rebound. But over to Spurs, it looked like Spurs were, it really looked like for the Spurs players, they felt like they were let off. And they're like, okay, this is the chance that we have to take. And if we don't take it, there's not going to be another one. And clearly, there were some subs made, which I think was a little bit difficult for United to handle. Ericsson being taken off. I thought Ericsson probably could have. I was surprised that he came off in the 60th. He probably could have held on a little bit longer. Definitely, we have to keep track of him being tired and gassed, but Spurs didn't necessarily have anything in the first half to throw anyway. So it wasn't like they were being stretched too thin. But right after that,
Yeah, I think
Harold,
it was. I think it was I mean, before you get into that, I think it was just a case of Spurs capitalizing on our subs more than us
Yeah,
capitalizing on our
absolutely.
own subs, because in the first half, I mean, you see that with the way Spurs play. I mean, they're gonna get overrun in the midfield more often than not, and we controlled it. We did really well in that first half. Once the second half came and we started making those subs, they made their subs to counter our subs, and then they suddenly had control of the midfield by bringing on all these extra players. So I mean, they just credit to the caretaker of the caretaker. He called it right. He called it right to on those subs, and our guys just didn't have enough to just cope with it.
Yeah, definitely 2 points lost for United, 1 point gain for Spurs. Looking at it that way, it does very little for their their aspirations to make it to the European spots in terms of closing that gap. 6 points off of United in fifth place, tied on points with Villa, just above them with a 7 goal differential. United with 9, Villa with 5, and Liverpool breathing down their necks, just 1 point behind. So wherever that goes, looking at what Tottenham have left to deal with, they have Liverpool in their next match. Then afterwards, you would think that it would seem pretty simple for them. Palace, Villa, Brentford, and Leeds. United still have some tests to also get past, which is a game they need to make up against Brighton. And then at home to Chelsea, thankfully. Clearly, United's away form against the top six has been abysmal. This being the second best, result for United away from home, I think says it all. And that wraps it. That wraps it for game week 32 and 33. Chatting through those results, getting through the action during the weekend and in midweek. Gat, we have some notes for fantasy. There's going to be a deadline this weekend, and I think that one is actually for Saturday. So Saturday morning, we don't have any weird Friday or Tuesday deadlines to keep track of. We're gonna get into some of the notes for game week 34, which is a double game week, a pretty large double game week. And Gary, we can start off with uh, what the notes are for double game week 34.
Alrighty, so there's about five, not even about, there is 5 game weeks left in the season. It is now crunch time for both fantasy and just regular football in general. You did mention that there is no Tuesday nonsense deadline that we have to worry about, but that's just this week. Unfortunately,
Right, just this week.
there's still plenty more doubles to come. We're going into a double right now. There's teams that double in game week 36. There's teams that double in game week 37. There's These deadlines are going to come at you hard and fast. So right now, more than ever, it's a great time to start planning, not just for the week ahead, but for the rest of the season. You want to make sure that even if you even if you aren't going to make any transfers as soon as the deadline hits for the upcoming week, you have to at least know what you're going to do so that you're not caught off guard once these Tuesday, Wednesday deadlines start coming back. But we do have a quick watch list update for everybody who is listening. So far, we have in defense, we have Ben White, Alex Moreno, who is surprising me left and right. He passes the eye test every single game that he plays in. Credit to Emery and doing great things over there with that squad. Uh, Gahey over at Palace, Timothy Castagna over at Leicester, Trent and Robbo round out the defensive watch list. Into the midfield, we have quite a few names that we are taking a look at. The likes of Salah Gakpo from Liverpool, Grealish and KDB from City. We have another Palace player in Eborici Eze. Martinelli makes the list for Arsenal. Jared Bowen in a West Ham team that do still have a lot to play for down at the bottom. Ramsey and Pereira round out the midfield list. Into our forwards, just a couple names just to finish up this watch list update. We have Diogo Jota, Gabriel Jesus, Ivan Phoney, Alexander Isak, who just doesn't stop returning. Him and Wilson, doesn't matter who starts. If they're both on the pitch, if they both get minutes, they're going to score. It doesn't matter who starts and who doesn't. And Dominic Solanke on a Bournemouth side that we have mentioned already before. They're doing pretty good. So for the next 5 game weeks, that's a solid watch list update. However, watch list aside, the template going forward is leaning heavily towards being tripled up on City, United, Newcastle, Liverpool, and Brighton, since those are the heavy hitters that do have quite a few doubles on the horizon. So you can probably easily just build a team around three players from every single team and call it a day. So just real quick, if you are in that position where you haven't doubled or tripled up on any of these players yet, just some quick options for each team. For Man City, if you do have a goalkeeping conundrum, or if you do want a goalkeeper to manage the doubles going forward, you can look no further than Ederson. Yes, unfortunately, City haven't been keeping too many clean sheets, but at the end of the day, it is City. They haven't, unfortunately, an easier run in than most. So either may or may not be a clean sheet in there for Ederson to take advantage of. Nathan Ake, John Stones, Jack Grealish, the Ginger himself, KDB, Mahrez, and Haaland round out your best options for a Man City team to triple up on. For United, you can look at Shaw, Rashford, Bruno, and Martial, the same bunch that we've pretty much been talking about most of the season. For Newcastle, Pope can be your other option in goal. If you don't have the funds to get up to Ederson, I think he's at around 6 million, 6.1 or something like that. So Pope is about 0.5 cheaper. So he could be an option if you can't get up to Ederson. Trippier has been in everyone's team since day one. He better still be in your team. If he's not, you better get him. Botman has become pretty much the new standout second Newcastle defense, mainly because he is cheaper than Shar, who actually he did score today, if I'm not mistaken.
And yeah, unfortunately, was ruled out by VAR.
Oh, it was ruled out. Okay. So Botman's on that list, and then of course, as I just mentioned, Isak and Wilson, they're going to be on that list. There seems to be a pattern where the midweek games seem to be going to Callum Wilson. So it could be that Isak is favored overall, but again, whether it's starting or even off the bench, they both seem to be getting returns, which is just phenomenal for Newcastle. Moving into Liverpool, some of the assets you want to look at for them would be Trent, Robbo, Jota, Gakpo, Nunez, despite Jota being heavily favored because of his counter pressing. Nunez still remains a threat whenever he comes off the bench. And then Mo Salah, of course, is always going to be in that list. And then last but not least, for those Brighton assets, you have Steele, who has been doing a phenomenal job replacing Sanchez in goal. It seems he's probably going to get the nod more often than not now to end the season. Just be careful because Brighton do have the most doubles coming up. So we'll see what De Zerbi decides to do between the sticks, if he's going to keep it to Steele or not. Dunk in defense, McAllister, March, and Matoma are the usual three that most people are going to have anyway. So that rounds out the list of who you should be targeting from those teams.
Looking at some of the transfers before we go into captaincy, it looks like the most net transfers in as of this week are Rashford, Stones, KDB, Haaland, and Jota, with Alexander-Arnold close behind. And really interestingly, the sells have been mostly Arsenal players: Saka, Kane, Martinelli, Watkins, and Odegaard. I really don't feel like, especially from a fantasy perspective, that suddenly Arsenal's assets are going to stop producing or scoring. I think, yes, they're if you're looking at the argument from doublers or midfielders, forwards that actually have these double game weeks that you want to take advantage of, I understand that. But as far as having, I guess, attainable assets that are going to return, that aren't necessarily just going to drop to the ground and give up, I think there's still a chance for them to fight. Kane is also a very, very, very weird conundrum in the fact that, especially in my own personal team, or in my head, I would want to drop Kane, and he just still keeps getting points out of nowhere. I think it was a 10-pointer that he got for his 2 assists and bonus for this game. So he seems undroppable. But of course, if you want to use those funds to spread out to your team and get some more doublers in, I think that's a perfectly viable option. Like Gat was saying, those double game weeks are going to be probably key for deciding your rank in these final game weeks. So there's a lot to still play for. All of these players can still produce. And talking specifically about the single game weekers like Kane, like Tony, like Watkins, Madison, it's worth to hold on to them if you can fit them in your team. and not necessarily tear up your whole squad just to accommodate the double game weekers. The very fantasy thing that to happen would be a single game week player outscoring someone that you took a hit for just because he played twice. So it feels like definitely go with your gut. Disclaimers all around. Going into captaincy, I think you shouldn't have to look anywhere else other than the doublers for this double 34. Erling Haaland with 2 matches, and that's going to be just so that I don't mess this up. It's going to be against Fulham and West Ham. Very favorable, but there is that Madrid fixture in between, so they're going to have to keep an eye on that. We'll see if they go ahead, and so it's between that game, the second game, and Leeds, whether they decide to bench or rest or keep him on the pitch just for match fitness. That's something that you should also keep in mind. However, a very close second candidate for your captaincy armband is going to be Mo Salah, and Salah is the one that is going to be playing against Spurs, and then I think the second fixture, Gat, is going to be against Fulham at home. They're both home fixtures. It looks very well for Arsenal attackers. Salah is probably going to be the one nailed-on player that you want to put a captaincy armband on. You could try to gamble a little bit with some other names, namely like a Gakpo or Jota, but like we see, Klopp is starting to utilize those minutes and refresh his attacking players by putting in Luis Diaz, by taking out Jota, swapping him out, taking Gakpo out, swapping him out also. So Salah seems to be the number one guy. And then also another doubler, just because he continues to also produce and not frustrate like Bruno Fernandes has been in terms of fantasy points. Marcus Rashford with 2 matches, a home fixture against a good Villa side. That one might be a bit tough, so that's why he's probably third on our list in terms of captaincy. But against Villa and Brighton, United having a very tough time against Brighton in the FA semi, but they were able to get past on those penalties. Maybe this third time around, it's going to be a different story. So, Gat, the deadline Saturday, 6 a.m. Don't forget to do your transfers. Don't forget to set your captain. If you do want to take a hit, I think that's perfectly fine and viable, especially if you're bringing in some doubling players. Of course, don't get to my word of advice with a disclaimer attached on tied around it would be don't get tunnel vision too much on these double game weekers. Players like, for example, Brighton would be great to keep for long term. I think there's it's a short enough fixture list left to look at the last 5 and see who benefits me the most in my team, and make sure you make the most out of those last free transfers that you have, without taking too much. But I think a -4 or even a -8, depending on who you're bringing in. I feel like there's going to be a lot of points in this game week. I hope it feels like it's going to be a lot of people over the 100 gang. But going into our prediction round and making sure that we keep up with the little game that we have here among us on the bench, we're going to be predicting the scores for 3 matches on this upcoming game week. And that is the first one, Arsenal versus Chelsea. So, Gat, where I'm looking at right here, maybe even some stats, which I typically do before we get into the games. And for this upcoming game week, 34, Arsenal-Chelsea, that's going to be a Tuesday game, so it's the later game in the game week. And at least in recent times, it's been fairly even. Arsenal taking a 1-0 win earlier in the season, 4-0, 4-2 back in seasons prior. 2-1 to Chelsea back in 2021 and 2-0 to Chelsea. Both of those wins coming away from home, actually. So it looks like they have some success at the Emirates. There are still some missing players for both teams. I think Reece James is probably the biggest miss. Kai Havertz has been out, but he also hasn't been too involved in the attack. This one
apparently
can
Cucurella also today is some kind of hamstring issue or some kind of muscle injury. So yeah, I don't think he's going to be available for it either,
So
unless he recovers.
as far as their last four matches, just off of what I'm looking at right now, Arsenal with 3 draws and a loss, Chelsea with 4 straight losses. Someone's going to. I feel like this has to be a win for either side. I hope it's not a draw. It looks like Arsenal are going to respond. It in my head. What do you think for score prediction, Gat?
Yeah, I think and hope that Arsenal do respond, but I think Josue said it last night that this kind of match, despite where Chelsea are on the table, it's still gonna be a tough
Of
match. You know,
course.
these Big Six matches are always nice to watch, no matter what's going on in the rest of the table. But I do think that Arsenal will persevere. They will bounce back. It's not gonna be easy. It'll be 2-1 to Arsenal.
2-1 Arsenal. I'm gonna go one further, Gat. I hope that they have a response. I hope it's emphatic. I think it's going to be 3-0 Arsenal. And that mostly is based off of the fact that I don't see Chelsea nicking a goal. Yes, they do have some issues with organizing at the back, but they have to. They have to. They can't go. What is it? Is it 5? Yeah, they can't go 5 games without a win. Their last win was at the beginning of the month, a 4-1 win against Leeds. I think that this is the chance that they have to put a green W on the column and get things done. Moving on to the next one, though, we got Liverpool at home hosting Spurs. Both of these teams going for it on the European spots. Tottenham in 5th, like we had mentioned. Liverpool a point behind in 7th, just separated off of goal differential because of Villa. It looks like, at least head-to-head wise, it's been Liverpool dominant. Spurs haven't found a way to kind of crack that. And there's been quite a few draws, but in terms of the last 6 matches, it's been wins for Liverpool with, I think, two draws in between, which were last season, 1-1 and 2-2 respectively. Liverpool took a 2-1 win earlier in the season. Their record over the last 10 games are 8 wins for Liverpool, 2 draws in between them. Spurs haven't won anything since then. And they've lost just one of their last 20 league games against Spurs with 13 wins and 6 draws. They're unbeaten in 10 games since a 4-1 loss in Wembley in October 2017. I'm going to go first on this one. I think, looking at it also, I really feel like it's more of United's fault for not being able to close out games. But I also feel like Liverpool can't get started either. Um, I think it's going to be 2-1 Liverpool.
I think, unfortunately, they've been proving it all season long. Liverpool are just a different animal when it comes to playing at Anfield. Again, though, it is
Of course.
Liverpool Spurs. It's a pretty big fixture. I don't think it's going to be easy at all, but they've been doing it all season. And there's no reason to believe that they're going to stop now. So I think it's going to be a second half game because, like you said, um, Liverpool haven't been starting too strong as of late, and Spurs have always just been more of a second half team for some odd reason. But 2-0 Liverpool. As much as I want to draw, I don't think it's going to happen at Anfield.
2-0 Liverpool. Okay. A very interesting line item here, saying that Harry Kane has scored in each of his last 3 Premier League games, failing to win all 3 of them. The last person to go 4 games scoring without winning has been Stephen Fletcher back in 2012. The last game that we have here, which is going to be very interesting, the very bottom of the barrel, Leicester City hosting Everton at home at the King Power. Leicester sitting in 18th, Everton in 19th, 29 and 28 points respectively. Not going right, not going well for either squad. Do you wanna go first here, guy? I do have something in mind, but it just
I think didn't Iheanacho come off with a knock this last game?
yes. Yes, he did.
Well, if there's no Kelechi Iheanacho, there is no party. 1-1.
1-1. I don't think they score. I really don't think they score. I feel like that's actually I do like 1-1. I was initially going to say 0-0. I don't see City having the tools to crack an Everton clean sheet, but
Yeah, but I think
with Everton sneaking that goal today against Newcastle,
they both know what's at stake too.
I know that's the
They
thing. They
both need
both
to
know
get
what's at
out. They
stake.
both need to get out. I mean, it's highly possible that this could be probably game of the week 5-5 or something like that with how open this game probably will be with them both needing to make sure they get the win.
And there are rumors that Everton might not even exist after because of the administration problems and the surpluses that they've had in terms of deficit from all the spending that they've done. Do I want Sean Dyche to keep stinking up the league? Probably not. But I don't. I just don't see City. I don't see City. I don't see Leicester City. Sorry, putting anything together. I'm going to go 2-1 Everton. I'm just gonna go left field. I don't think that's gonna be it. I'm more inclined to say a 1-1 draw, but I'm just gonna say 2-1 Everton just to see if it's possible. Just to put a wild pitch. Is that what they call it? Wild pitch out
Yes,
and see
sure.
if if it falls. Well, that looks like it's it. Gat, for this episode, any parting thoughts before we sign off? I know it's been only me and you taking on the helm for this recording, but we'll be back on the bench next week with the rest of the guys. Any parting thoughts?
Think I'm good. What about you?
Are you starting Maguire ever again in the league
No, absolutely not.
with Shaw?
We have
With Shaw as
Iceman,
left center back?
Iceman Lindelof who can take a mean ass penalty, and Luke Shaw who has been the best center back replacement stand-in that I could have ever imagined.
You saw him catch up to that Sun run, right? That was great. I thought that was great.
That was fantastic.
I thought that was great. I do also think that Lindelof, however, has the capacity to
To
have
make
a very
mistakes.
yes, he has a very,
But
very
but we both pick
bad
him over
tendency to.
Maguire though.
No, of course, yes. But he
He's
has a
much better. He's much better on the ball.
terrible tendency, terrible tendency to pick up really silly yellow cards for no reason. The one thing, my one parting thought, which I had mentioned earlier, if you caught it in the episode, talking about players that have been absolute duds for their teams. You know, Aubameyang rotting on the bench is one, but one that I saw today, Richarlison
Has yet to score a league goal for Spurs.
has yet to score a league goal. You know, a chant that I heard, they're like, "It's gonna be May, it's gonna be May." Richarlison 0 goals. It's gonna be if he goes, if someone is out there that wants to take on the bet, just like how they try to do Lingard dirty, and last day, last day of the season, last match of the season, sent that puncher's 20 quid down the drain. If someone wants to put a tenner on Richarlison finishing the season goalless, please. I hope this backfires spectacularly and he ends up scoring against Liverpool, because Liverpool's defense have been absolutely leaky all season. But he just looked devoid of all ideas. He did not look. He just doesn't look on it. He doesn't look on it. Is he going to be able to finish the season without a goal? I think that would be a great troll material. But aside from trolling, aside from dropping points, dropping the ball, slipping, letting slip the title out of your hands, whatever it may be, we're here every week to go over it with you guys and to hear what you have to say on the bench. So again, make sure that you get in touch with us in the comments, whether it's on the YouTube video, on our posts, wherever you find us online on social media. My name's Diego, joined this time by Gat. We're the Bench Warmers. This is the Bench of the Voice, where the bench is always warm. Peace, everybody.